Our guest on the Ranveer show today is the brains behind some of India's most successful businesses. He's one of the most renowned business and corporate coaches in the country. And I'm proud to say that he's also one of my oldest mentors in life. Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai returns on the Ranveer show today. Every conversation with him is always a learning process for me. He's someone who's a social observer. He observes society, he thinks about it, and he's also a polymath. So he applies his knowledge of all those other subjects and tries, for lack of a better sentence, predicting the future of the world. Today's theme is the life within and after the pandemic. What's the world going through? What's the world getting prepared for? Where's the world going? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges going to be like? And at its core, how do you make the best use of your time spent at home, your time through the pandemic, your own productivity levels? That's what we're talking about today. Every episode of the Ranveer show is a mentoring session for me, but this episode is an actual conversation with my true mentor, Dr. RKP. Remember to follow the Ranveer show on Spotify. We're a Spotify exclusive now. Every episode's available on Spotify 48 hours before it's available anywhere else in the world. Loved by Bosses, brought to you by Airtel Xstream Fiber, where we try decoding productivity in the new normal. With growing needs due to work from home, the super fast 1 GBPS internet by Airtel Xstream Fiber can handle up to 60 devices at the same time. So with that, get ready to hear from India's top business minds about their stories, their struggles, and their bosses. This is Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai returning once again for a beautiful episode of The Ranveer Show. Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai, sir, an all-star of the Ranveer Show. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for once again having me on this home show, I would call it.
Yeah, you were our first Hindi episode. In many ways, you were what led to us starting the podcast when you had been the last episode of something called the Inspiring Interview series that we had done way back. The first time you and me had ever met. Always learning from you, sir. One thing I've got to ask you is what's happening in the world right now? Because you hear people talking about how vaccination drives are going to bring the world back to what it was. I've got a lot of friends who are saying, they've got the double vaccination, like they're fully vaccinated, but they're still getting COVID. And they've had, I have a friend, I just spoke to him last night, intelligent guy, software engineer in Silicon Valley. He took the vaccine, everything, and he got a horrible case of COVID like 2-3 weeks ago, like as bad as anyone else. He was like one step short of being hospitalized. My point of saying that is, no matter how many vaccines come out, like vaccines are definitely needed as like a shield to safeguard you. That's the best that the human race has been able to do in this phase. But in saying that, considering the possibility that this whole COVID situation, work from home, the pandemic situation is going to maybe be there for the foreseeable future, 5 years, maybe 10 years, what's the world looking like, sir?
So, first things first, I think we are going through a massive disruption.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a new world order. And when I say new world order, I'm not only talking about social behaviors, the way we think, the way we interact, the way we deal with ourselves and outsiders. So, 3 data points. Number one, the world will communicate differently. It's going to be real time everywhere. So, when we heard this word called as live, especially when I was a child, it meant some live television program, maybe a cricket match happening in one corner of the world. Can you believe it? Do you notice this, that everything is live? Social media is real time. It's live. So WhatsApp is live. I'm thinking something, it's happening live. So this whole communication is real time and multiple. First data point, our communication has already changed. Second thing that's going to happen is going to have a new economic world order.
Okay.
I know of girls who are not even in the college, they're in schools, and I'm sure you also know many of them who are earning crores of rupees.
Okay.
So that's something we should know, that the world order will go into a different phase of economy, and knowledge economy is going to be a major factor. Look at Byju's or any of the edutech companies. So they're right out over there, but they don't know what you're doing. And the third and the most important data point is our families are getting disrupted. Maybe a new family order would come in. Think about it. Joint family to nuclear family, but now it's becoming 2 individuals. I'm not saying good or bad, but definitely it's going to be a new way the generation will move forward. So I think pandemic and the COVID, irrespective of whether we find a vaccine or no, I mean, let's go positive about it. So, all bad things end. At the end of everything, we're going to see the way human race will think, ideate, communicate, travel, totally different. And it's not going to be different only, it's going to be a multiplier effect. So I think let's utilize this in the best possible way. So I think it's very important to know that pandemic has the bad sides of it. People have lost jobs, people are not able to stabilize themselves, suicide cases to come what may. But the reality is that if you can think about the opportunities that is coming up in the new world order, I would call it a social order. Everything is going to be an opportunity, but you need to study it, think deep, and ride the wave.
Again, the new world order, one of the early business lessons I ever learned in my life is, if you study like the massive businesses ever, they're always built around some sort of a disruption.
Yes.
Something happens in the real world. Maybe some new technology comes up. Maybe there is a new wave of human thinking. And the businesses that are built around that become the long lasting business.
Yes.
A great example of this, I think you had taught me in 1915 when cars were invented. There were 3 families. Could you just share that example on this episode?
Absolutely. I think this is the Henry Ford era.
Yeah.
So Henry Ford supposed to be the mass producer of the T model. But let me tell you this, that Henry Ford wasn't the only person making cars. So there were, if I were to read it right, more than 500 companies in the same era. But of course, Ford became the face of it. So if you look at Ranveer, he is face of Indian social media, the youth. And there'll be a few of you are among the top. But there are thousands of them who are part of this whole big revolution that's happening. So I think we are in that phase once again. What happened probably in the early 19th century or 20th century, as you call it, about the automobile revolution. The IT revolution happened in my generation, maybe almost 21 years ago, the Y2K generation.
Then the social media revolution happened with Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, because I think people figured that Internet 2.0 is where humans interact with the internet. Internet 1.0 was just websites where you go see different websites, cartoonnetwork.com and yahoo.com and some CNN or bbc.com. And now suddenly Mark Zuckerberg came and said, no, let's make these human beings interact with whatever's happening. And that was the big wave.
And here comes a very interesting point. There's also going to be spirituality 2.0.
Okay.
Now that's where probably we don't realize it. It's happening very much undercurrent. Because of the pandemic, a lot of people are facing mental health issues or challenges. But what is interesting is that people have also started thinking the difference between being lonely and enjoying solitude. So when you're lonely, that's a mental health problem. But when you want to be in solitude, that's a spiritual solution.
Yeah. I have a mentor called Zakir Khan.
Yes.
He's a stand-up comic, but he's also an intellectual. He observes the world. And he had a very nice modern take on spirituality. He said that these are all psychological solutions for a human being's problems. And probably our ancestors, our ancients, looked at spirituality with that light. That this was their therapy.
Yes.
So we keep talking about, even I'm going through therapy right now, and it's helping me a lot. But for them, when there wasn't this concept of therapists, they would turn to scriptures. They would turn to things that their ancestors wrote in books. Keeping that in mind, so I want to take the conversation to this 3 versions of a human being theory. So they say everyone has 3 versions of themselves. One is what you present in the professional environment. One is what you present in the social environment. And one is what you present at home.
Yes.
There's 3 versions of you. Your friends, your professionals, and at home. But because of the pandemic, now there's no social environment.
Yeah.
And you're left with 2 versions of yourself. The home one, which includes you being alone and you being with family.
Okay.
And your professional self.
Yes.
So I think that's actually a big stark change in human behavior, and that's what we can anticipate. The question specifically, sir, is about productivity. Because I feel like everyone's in this strange zone, especially when last year the pandemic began. People figured that, if I just work for 5 or 6 hours, that's good enough compared to the 9-10 hours you're putting in an office. Your effective work is 5 to 6 hours of work. So say you begin at 9 a.m., you can actually finish all your work by 3 p.m.
Yes.
Max 4 p.m., 5 p.m. and you have the rest of the time to yourself. But people are still kind of gauging how to understand how productive they're being. Everyone's confused, and this has led to a phenomenon called languishing. Okay, this is what like Western media calls it. Keeping languishing in mind, the question is, maybe the first question to you is, on a personal level, how do you measure your productivity? And the follow-up question is, how should one measure their productivity?
Okay, so I have very clearly sorted out myself in my life. I've been very, very happy in that. First level of productivity is outside, and the second level of productivity is inside. So I have a measurable tool for that. So let me start with outside because the world understands me more from outside. So for me, how much do I write is a measurement of productivity. I'm an author. That's what the world knows me for, all my Chanakya books. With the pandemic, I have written 21 books on Chanakya, 4 to be released yet. But I write every day. I write for newspapers, I write for children's magazine, I write poems. If I don't write, and I have a measurable tool, so I need to write at least for 2 or 3 hours a day. And I do that consistently, including research articles. The second is the inside way of productivity, and that's calmness, non-reaction, and maturity to everybody around. I mean, there are many measurable tools. I got some 20 data points of what I call myself as productive, but the two of them very prominently is the kind of writings that I do, and I do that consistently, and the calmness that I have that I've been growing internally.
Yeah. I think it's really cool that you split it into two thought processes, because one is very subjective to what your
Yes.
profession is.
Yes.
Okay, how many pages are you writing every day? I'm
Yes.
assuming.
Yes.
For me, it's a little random. It's depending on my own energy and my own creativity on the day, and I'm not able to quantify it yet.
Yes.
But that second point you spoke about is what I find very interesting, and because we're seeing so many rise of mental health issues
Yes.
all over the world,
Yes.
here's an exercise that's helped me as well. You basically very strongly try scanning your own emotional processes, and you try, instead of, okay, so everyone's got emotion, and then there's a response to that same emotion.
Okay.
So the emotion could be anger. Something happens wrong at home. Lots of people are fighting with their parents nowadays, if they're staying with their parents. It's just generational gaps, all that. So anger will rise in every home because you're confined in that same space with the same people. Can you take a step back from your own anger, gauge it, and decide your reaction after gauging it, versus keeping your observation very close to your emotion, seeing the emotion rise, and then using that emotion and reacting?
Wow.
So it's called creating distance between your perception and your emotion, pretty much.
I read an interesting article from a scientist, and believe me, he's not a spiritual guru. He's an absolute scientist who works on the brain. And he said, death is not real, it's only a mental concept. At the level of consciousness, if you go into the level of consciousness, you will not understand what is birth or death. So let me put a very straight question to you. Do you remember when you were born? Does anybody remember? It's a concept that has been told by somebody. They put in a date and a time and told you. But do you remember that? When you actually came into the world, when the first time? So actually speaking, when we say we are not born, it's true at the conscious level. You don't remember your birth. And funnily, you will never remember your death. You died previously. You remember that? You're born this life. Unfortunately, what is happening is that we are working at a level only at the external, dimension. I'm not telling that external dimension is not important, because that's how you interact with the society.
Yeah.
But having two goals measurable for yourself, I think for each person you should have two goals. Whichever profession you believe in, whichever path you have chosen, measure it outside. If you're going to be in Olympics, better go for gold. But that's one measure. But the other measure is also saying that have you evolved consciously with your consciousness, and saying that yes, I need to get deeper. And if you're able to connect both, believe me, you'll be happy inside and successful outside.
Yeah. The consciousness goal, or the spiritual
Absolutely.
goal, as we call it. I think the world is waking up to spiritualism and spiritual
Yes.
thoughts. So,
Yes.
primarily because the world always begins from a selfish place, and if you really deep dive into spiritualism, you'll see how much it benefits your mind,
Yes.
your perception of the world, and therefore your career and every other aspect of life, your empathy, your relationships, etc., etc. Coming back to that same concept of creating distance between your perception and your emotion.
Yes.
So I personally feel that when we're talking about productivity from an internal at home perspective, if you feel that as compared to this time last year, so say we're in August now, August 2021. In August 2020, did you react more? Was there more anger? Was there more anxiety versus this year? Where you feel you're calmer, you're taking some time and one step away from your emotions, one step away just to kind of give yourself some time and gauge what's happening in your head. If you feel you're doing this more often, it's a great measure of internal productivity.
Yes.
And that's what the world really needs right now.
Yes.
Because all of us are at home and we have access to the world only through social media, only through content. But there's this whole internal kind of cocktail of emotions going on. We're scared about what's happening on the outside. We're scared about our own family's safety. We're scared about our own professional futures.
Yeah.
All you can do is learn to be calm, because that calm and that kind of sthirta, that Zen mentality will protect you in all those other spheres.
Yes.
Say you have some professional trouble, the ability to stay calm will get you through that professional trouble.
Absolutely.
Say your family has some trouble, the ability to stay calm will get you through
Yes.
that trouble.
Yes.
So it's very important to give yourself these brain exercises right now. And you don't, I mean, obviously meditation will help a lot in creating that distance between your perception and your emotions. But more importantly, it's about you being conscious about working on your brain. If you don't want to meditate right now, don't, but at least start being conscious of gauging your own mind and seeing how it reacts.
Absolutely. Maybe our generation is seeing such disruption for the first time.
Yeah.
And that's the way we look at it. But if you go back into human history, there were many disruptions. World War I and World War II. I mean, just imagine this, India, of course, was under the British rule at that particular time. But look at the whole Europe collapsed.
Yeah.
Okay, at one point, Hiroshima, Nagasaki bombing. How much time it took for them to revive and come back?
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe you go back into history, there will be many other, maybe Kalinga War in Chanakya's times, as we call it, post Chanakya time. The whole thing was disrupted and, everything. Think about it. It's not, or a Mahabharata war, let me put it that way. Think about it. The best of the warriors of all places coming together, killing each other, total destruction.
Yeah.
But I always remember this Ramayana, incident where, after one of these big wars that happens, one of the wise person tells this, thank you for the war. And people are blaming, each other, and they're trying to find out the reason why. Because a new world will get created. A new world order will get derived from this ashes that has come out from this fire, Only thing is that since we are going through the fire, there's so much of heat, uncertainty. But let me tell you, life is beautiful.
Yeah.
And we all will go through this churn. And of course, the corona may not end as you rightly pointed out. But the thing is that, nature knows that at the end of it, maybe we'll develop natural immunity beyond just, the vaccination. But the world will go and we will only become better irrespective of this corona.
So because the theme of today's episode is specifically about productivity, work, and people's mindsets.
Yeah.
Very simple question for you. And this is a question probably that I've forgotten how to answer because I've just been so much in the flow with career since the age of 22. How does one stop procrastinating?
There are two types of procrastinations. One is one-off. Second is a habit. So let's say, I'm not in a mood today and I'm supposed to do something and I say procrastinate. Chalo, kal karte hain yaar, I'm not in the right frame of mind. I don't have the energies to do it. That's fine. But it becomes a habit over a period of a time that, kal kare so aaj kar and all those things. Then you keep doing it. Then it's a problem. Coming back to your question about how to stop procrastination. Two simple formulas. Very, very simple formulas. Reward and punish your mind. Okay, so many people are not even aware. The day you are aware of it, saying, okay, mind is your best friend or enemy. Talk to yourself, make some schedules. I always say, this 1 month or a 21-day formula may log word. So that every day I will get up at 4 o'clock. Let's say I'm just giving an example, or maybe 7 o'clock. What you do is that you make a logbook and saying that, okay, did I get up at today at 7 o'clock? Great, write it down. Reward yourself. Second day, reward yourself. Third day, don't get it, punish yourself. The good news is that as procrastination is a negative habit, punctuality and self-discipline is a positive habit. So when you're developing, you have to play with the mind. If it's not listening, punish it a little bit. If it's listening, reward it a little bit. Slowly, slowly, you'll get into the zone where you will become self-disciplined. Okay, but also the last point which I want to tell Ranveer, as far as procrastination is concerned, it's important to also know in life what not to do, and that's going to be one of the biggest decisions we'll ever take.
Yeah. I think the way I look at the same thing you spoke about, sir, is the macro and micro
Yes.
perspective. So, macro is what you spoke about in the end, which is that it's a very simple piece of advice, but select a career
Yes.
or a role which you really enjoy. And in that kind of a case, you won't need motivation. Because when you have a very clear end goal, then motivation will find you. You'll wake up with that fire of like going down that path you've chosen. Often procrastination is the outcome of you being on a path you're not supposed to be on. Often, not always, but often.
yes.
Like I love my job, I love every aspect of it, but there are days where I procrastinate a bit.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Once in a while, it's okay. In fact, Swami Vivekananda put it nicely. If you're inspired, you will do it better than yourself.
Yeah, 100%. Because you're given external energy. You're able to like see patterns that you probably wouldn't have been able to see.
Yes.
You bring creativity and flair
Yes.
to your work.
Absolutely. So I think motivational could be external, inspirational is internal.
Yeah. Also, keeping in mind the micro perspective
Yes.
on procrastination, there's a rule that I followed since childhood, but I didn't know that I was following it. Later in life, I spoke about it in motivational talks. And later on in life, I came to know that there are motivational speakers all over the world who've spoken about this rule earlier.
Yeah.
It's called the 5-second rule. So basically, if you're watching TV, but you know that there's some work to do, or you're playing a video game, you know that there's some work to do, you give yourself a 5 or 10 minute window. You say, okay, in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to go. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to go. And you try kind of disciplining yourself within that window.
Wow.
But if you go beyond it, say you look at your watch and you know, oh, 15 minutes have passed. Now I'm beyond that 10-minute mark. Then you have to go in a slight red alert zone where you have to do a countdown to 5. So freeze that moment and tell yourself that if I continue watching TV or playing this video game beyond the count of 5, it's going to affect my career badly or my purpose badly. Versus if I get up and get my task done, then that's going to affect my career positively. So you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and put pressure on yourself through that count.
Wow.
Get up or stay and have it affect your long-term career.
Wow.
But often what I've seen is only the first 2 or 3 times of doing this is difficult. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes, and the long-term effects are that you're actually able to kill off that habit of procrastination. Used this a lot in college where I wasn't enjoying what I was studying. I didn't want to study like engineering because this is the way it was being taught, was rote learning based, which is not how engineering should be taught. But if you have to pass your exams, you have to follow these kind of games. That's the other thing that engineering college or say education that maybe you're not enjoying does for you. It puts you through that ragda, that intense zone of doing something you don't enjoy doing, which I have been told is a strength of Indians all over the world.
Yes.
That we will put ourselves into that grind.
Yes.
Maybe it's an outcome of an old school education system where so many of the kids aren't enjoying the way things are being taught. But because they've put themselves through this, now they can put themselves through anything.
Anything. It's like getting on the Bombay local trains.
Yeah. That's a completely apt example.
If you can travel there, you can travel anywhere in any condition.
100%. And I look back at college when I used to travel in that local train. It made me so tough. It made me so tough mentally that that's one of the gifts of growing up in this city.
Yeah.
There are curses. There are lots of blessings professionally. One underlying blessing is that it makes you a tough person. So, but the follow-up question to this whole section, okay, it's about slumps in your professional life. Lots of people in Bombay, in the rest of India, have lost their jobs. So anyone who's basically lost the businesses, be it the restaurant industry or other industries which were dependent on a footfall, or anyone who's just in a dark place professionally, what do you have to say to them?
So I think it's a very, very important question. Let me answer it first pre-pandemic. Okay, and I'll tell you post-pandemic or what we are going through right now. There was an HR research, human resource professionals conducted a very interesting research. And the insight was everybody will go through minimum 3 career changes in their lifetime. So shifting of careers 2-3 times is very normal. Now, coming back to the pandemic, you don't even know the profession that you had is going to be the profession of the future. Initially, it was maybe shifting from one company to another, but you were known for a certain skill. But today, you have to reinvent your own skill, maybe get into a different space altogether. But let me start with a spiritual answer. Swami Tejumananji, Chinmaya Mission, one of my gurus, he said something very nice. Suppose you're walking on a road and towards your destination, and suddenly you find a roadblock, slum, and you're not able to move forward. Maybe that road was not meant for you.
Hmm.
And I can tell you hundreds of cases where that initial phase, you feel, I've given up everything for this particular career path. Maybe I educated myself, I took loans, and suddenly, nothing's going to happen. But you just wait for some time, maybe it'll take you to a different path altogether. I'll give you my own personal instance. I was a very, very high flying professional till the year 2000. Okay, and you'll be surprised that educated MBA, worked with Mark Mascarenhas, who I worked with Sachin Tendulkar. We were the company which actually made him one of the richest sportsmen in the world. And the owner of that company just died in a car accident, and I was out of job. Okay, not that I was unproductive. The company had to wind up, and you just go back and wonder what's going to happen. But that's the point where you take a break with yourself. A problem in life is we want always the next activity the moment this activity ends. Why can't we take a break with ourselves? And it so happened with me that, this many people call it in between jobs. In fact, that's the most beautiful period of your life. But we don't take it in the right stride. So if you're going through this slum where you lost a job or something has hit, maybe your boss has decided to chuck you out, that's okay. But don't start looking at another job without analyzing yourself. So it's important to take a break. You don't have to get in the next activity or the next job immediately. Give yourself some time. Now you'll be surprised, I was totally trained to be a working professional, and suddenly this break in the year 2000, I go to Kumbh Mela, and then, a new direction in my life comes in, and then suddenly I'm into a business. Another disruption comes in my life, and I was a very successful entrepreneur, by the way. I have a company called Atma Darshan, traveled a lot, took more than 30,000 people to see India, and suddenly another thing hits in, and I'm into the Chanakya path. So what happens is that every new path, you don't know what the next. That's where uncertainty is. But you need to give that break. Unfortunately, during those uncertainties, people commit suicide. That's what's happening in the restaurant industry. I understand. So many restaurant people whom I know. Because many of them are from some of the communities that I know, the Banter community specifically. It's so sad. And I'm saying that just give yourself time. I understand the pressure, the financial whole thing, but it's not your problem. It's everybody's problem. So I think it's very important when you have a slump in a career, take a break. I'm not telling become lazy or it's important. Just take a break. I'm telling you, if you just calm down yourself for a week, I mean that's the minimum that you can give yourself, right? And of course, we have a discussion, very open-ended discussion with your family and friends. I can tell you one case, which is an inspiring case. There's a particular person. I'm talking about pandemic. He lost a job, okay, and he was committed to the company for 20 years. And that company not only winded up, the industry winded up. But this guy is such an inspiring guy. He just said, "Oh, theek hai yaar. I mean, fine. Let me give a break myself." He went to somebody and just said, "I'm looking out for new career opportunities." Can you believe this? This person got a job in a software company where he's not technically educated, but as a part of the senior management team.
To manage like the
Yeah,
staff.
so he said,
Wow.
I may not have the technical skills of software, but I was hired with a higher salary
Hmm.
for something which was so natural to me, which I never knew.
Yeah.
So it's important to know that yes, if you have a slump, just give your time. Of course, on a very practical side, I would say that go and learn new skills,
Yeah.
invest, and there are a lot of YouTube videos. You don't have to, if you don't have a few lakhs of rupees to invest on a edutech course or something like that, that's fine. But you can have the basic skills and try it out. Life is about experimenting again and again and again.
Yeah. I'd like to highlight human skills here as like the core skill. Like if you don't even want to learn coding specifically, or if you don't want to learn video creation specifically, which are very kind of elaborate skills,
Yes,
just learn EQ, learn how to manage human beings, learn
absolutely,
how other people's heads work.
absolutely.
We had a subject in engineering, it's called the communication skills thing. I'm asking
Yes,
Bhavya, who's recording this. Communication skills, whatever. It was a communication skills
yes,
based
yes.
subject. And everyone knows that. When you're a student, you know that, yeah, communication skills matter in life. But I don't think they understand the degree to which it
Degree,
matters. So I remember just at the start of BeerBiceps, I used to go up to people on the road and begin conversation. And it was difficult in the first few times. Then it became really easy after maybe the third day of me doing it. It was like second nature. I didn't know it then, but it was giving me intense training for my business career, because that's basically what
But
business
along with
is.
communication skills, you develop something more unique.
Confidence.
No?
Then,
Empathy.
yeah. The first conversation we had ever, like when we met each other for the first time, you highlighted the significance of being a polymath.
Yes, polymath. Absolutely.
And in my heart, I always knew the significance of it, because since I was a kid, different subjects interested me. Video games
Wow.
interested me as much as history did, or maths did. But when I hear it from you, I look at you. I've always looked at you as a mentor right from the first time we met. So when your mentor tells you something, then it sticks in your head.
Yes.
Again, you apply it in business, you apply it in your career. It also makes you a very interesting person. You enter a room and people find you interesting. People just want to hear your thoughts on things. So it's just, again, consuming podcasts as well as creating this much content is just the biggest gift of my life. It's not the money, the fame. It's all this knowledge that is thrown like a bomb on me every week. There's like 3 episodes we're recording every week, 4 episodes we're recording. I can't even articulate what it's doing to my mind on the inside.
Wow.
Yeah, like I'm not, and I'm very conscious of the fact that I've changed over these last 2 years because of these podcasts. I'd probably like to end this particular episode, because I know that this can go on forever.
It should go on.
I'd like to end the episode by just highlighting the fact that I was considered very stupid in school and college. There was a phase I was considered stupid in school. I started studying in the 9th standard because I realized girls like it when you study and you get good marks. But up till the 8th, I was always told that I'll amount to nothing. And after 11th and 12th, I did well. So I did well from 9th till 12th standard. Very well. Near the top of the class always. Stopped studying in engineering college again. And I was always told by all my professors that I won't amount to anything. So 4 years of your life, you're listening to that. It really affects your own outlook on life. And I entered the professional world with a serious lack of confidence. Like I really thought that I'm not going to amount to anything in life, because all my professors, a lot of my relatives told me that, you're in a very dangerous spot. You're not doing something conventional. You're not good at studies. You're not. And I just went for it, and things aligned, because I kept that thirst for knowledge alive, which became really alive when we started the podcast. And that's just taken my career to some other level. It's opened up doors, because I can hold conversations with people from different industries. I can hold conversation with the biggest Bollywood producer, or Harsh Mariwala, or yourself. And that's opened up doors for me. The reason I'm highlighting this is 2 things. One is, I really want people listening to this to believe in themselves and understand that even if people have called you dumb all your life or incapable all your life, if you just have that ability to want to learn things, curiosity, that's all you really need in life.
In fact, I want to highlight what you rightly pointed out. Just because you're a bad student doesn't mean you're a bad learner.
Yeah.
Okay. So our education system is actually an examination system. So just because you're not able to produce what the teacher or the education system wants you to learn and reproduce, you are categorized as a bad student. But I've seen this, that I'm learning from everyone, and unfortunately what I learn from everyone is not actually asked in the question paper. So I think one of the greatest skills that all of us should have, irrespective of the education system, what marks you're getting, is to be a learner. And I think this particular career that you have chosen has helped you to be a more learner. Are you giving exams on this? It doesn't matter. I mean, that's not what you want to do. But keep your learning curve high, even if your education is formally over. Otherwise, you'll stagnate in your career also.
Yeah.
I keep learning, and I formally keep studying. That's my interest area.
Yeah.
But I think what you rightly pointed out is that being a youth role model, somewhere we need to go back and say, keep learning. And there are so many avenues: a podcast, a YouTube, a book out over there, or maybe just a conversation with your dada dadi at home.
Yeah, 100%.
Be a learner, not just a good academic student.
Yeah. And probably try retaining things. Be a good listener. You don't have to listen to everybody, but when it's the right people, keep your ears open. And
I recently read a post also on LinkedIn, and it said, sometimes I'm not able to articulate it word by word, but it's something like, it's also the ability of what to speak and when not to speak.
Yeah. That's maturity.
That's maturity.
Yeah, that's called growing up. Like you just need to know
I,
what
I
not
I
to
can
say.
see you completely different from the 13th episode, Ranveer, to
Yeah.
what you're doing now.
What are you spotting? Because I know you don't just spot on a verbal level, you spot on an energy based level.
Yes.
And I'm not honestly in my physical peak right now. I'm very tired in life. I'm actually going to go out 2 days from now just to switch off with my team. But I'd love to know from you because you've known me for a while now. I know you for
Yes.
like 2.5 years, so.
I find you less disturbed.
Mm.
And there's something which probably not many people know about me. I can get into a completely deep silence mode whenever I want. I can just, you may be seeing me, talking and all, but I can switch off internally. So I can make my mind completely thoughtless, and I can actually understand vibrations, my own vibrations and others. And what has happened, I'm not exaggerating, that silence can connect me or disconnect me. I can see that that level of silence is there. Of course, you may not be conscious of it, but you have evolved as well. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think that's a nice end to this episode.
Thank you. I enjoy this. I learned a lot from you.
Are so what I mean, you always say that, but I don't ever just call you to learn from you. So it's to just exchange energy with you
Absolutely.
like this.
Absolutely.
It's to get inspired, and I don't think there's been a single time that I've met you that where I've not felt peaceful after meeting you. So I feel your blessings, sir, but also I feel the impact you have on rooms, and I think that's why people love listening to you on this show also, sir.
Thank you.
So thank you, and
Looking for the next episode.
yeah, this was like just maybe this was an episode that I needed at this stage of my life. So thank you so much.
Honor.
Thank you. That was the lovely mentoring session, which also became an episode of the Ranveer show for you guys. I hope that you guys picked up some spiritually themed productivity hacks from this beautiful mind that we know of, Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai. Thank you again, sir. On a personal level, I am pretty tired at the time of recording this particular episode. I am, for the lack of a better phrase, slightly burnt out. I am on the verge of taking a break from staying in Mumbai and continuing work. I'm actually going on a vacation. Was very tired before we started shooting the episode. And suddenly, while shooting this episode, I gained energy. That's the power that this man holds. He enters a room and changes the energy of a room. He enters a conversation and changes the energy of your mind. So if you've made it till this point in the episode, you know what I'm talking about. You feel different after hearing his words. He's got an extremely calming presence, and I highly recommend you check out his other episodes that we've done on the Ranveer show earlier when the Ranveer show had just begun. Remember to follow us on Spotify. Every episode's available on Spotify 48 hours before it's available anywhere else in the world. Stay tuned for more fun conversations about business and bosses. The Loved by Bosses series is powered by Airtel Xstream Fiber. The super fast 1 GBPS internet speed can handle up to 60 devices at the same time. Koi load nahi. Check out the link in the description to book now, and keep following the Ranveer show for many more heavy, insightful, value adding conversations just like this one. Of course, Dr. RKP will be back on the show very soon. Thank you for listening, guys.